You've seen Brian May guitar bends. You've seen David Gilmour guitar bends. But have you ever seen a guitar bend like this? This is the Ciari Guitars Ascender Standard, and this is one of the most portable full-size electric guitars you can get. Most people would consider this a travel guitar, but I don't really like calling it a travel guitar, and I'll explain why shortly. First, let's take a quick listen. Alright, so this is the Ciari Guitars Ascender Standard, and full disclosure, the guys over at Ciari Guitars have sent this over to me for my thoughts and to demo, so shout out to them. Now on first glance, this looks like a pretty standard electric guitar, but turn it around and it definitely doesn't look like your typical guitar. As you saw at the start of this video, this guitar can completely fold in half within seconds, thanks to this lever mechanism here inside the body of the guitar called the actuator, making it extremely portable to travel around with. Now pop it into this gig bag that comes with every guitar, and it will fit underneath any airplane seat, absolutely no worries. So in this video, I'll be running through the specs, my thoughts on how it feels and plays, a couple of sound demos, who this guitar is for, and finally any negatives or things I didn't like about this guitar. Now, if you're interested in picking up a Ciari guitar after this video, viewers of Guitar Zero to Hero who want to pick up a Ciari guitar can also get a bonus free travel backpack here, valued at $150 by using the link in the description or the code Guitar Zero to Hero at checkout. Now, this backpack is great if you need more storage space and pockets for a laptop and other items on the go. The Ascender comes with a padded gig bag, but it doesn't really have much room for anything else, just the guitar. So make sure you pop the guitar and the backpack in the cart and you'll get the backpack absolutely for free. Okay, so let's talk about the most obvious feature here, which is the folding mechanism called the actuator, which is made from stainless steel. It's really very easy to use, and Ciari have gone all in on the engineering for this actuator and the hinge, so nothing feels flimsy. Now, there's a couple of things that happen when you pull the lever of this actuator. The first thing that happens is that this floating tailpiece here will release from the playing position, loosening the tension of the strings. The tailpiece is this block here where you can see the ball ends on the strings. Now, once the tailpiece is released from that playing position, the actuator is then responsible for this stainless steel locking strut, and it moves in and out of the neck hinge. Now, the hinge is made from aircraft grade hard anodized aluminium. Now, with the locking strut pulled out of the hinge, it's now possible to simply fold the neck like that. Now, when folded, there's still a tiny bit of tension on the strings to keep them from flopping around, and these small V grooves formed in the fingerboard also help to keep things neat when the guitar is folded. The headstock sits perfectly in the back of the guitar like this, and there's a magnet here at the back of the headstock to keep the guitar in a folded state, so the neck won't just drop out of the body. Now, the only contact point along this neck is at the end of the headstock, so I would be careful not to apply any pressure here along the length of that neck. I'm sure this would be somewhat resilient, but I'm not going to take the chance to test how much pressure that it can take. Now, if you wanted to be on the super safe side, I guess you could stuff a t-shirt or a piece of foam in here as support. Now, when folding and unfolding the guitar, be careful where you put your hands because you don't want to pinch yourself. So a quick run on specs. It's got a basswood body with a painted satin finish. I've got the white model here, but it comes in a few different colors. We have two Seymour Duncan 59 pickups, which sound phenomenal, and a 3-way selector pickup switch. There's a mahogany neck with an ebony fingerboard. The Ascender is a full 24.75 inch scale length guitar, so it's the same as many Gibsons. There's locking tuners on the headstock, which is a great addition. 22 frets, and to top it off, all the Ciari guitars are made in Nashville, USA, and every guitar is put through a Plek machine, meaning that the frets are all perfectly leveled, so it plays absolutely beautifully out of the box. Now, plecking is something even big name brands sometimes don't do with their electrics, and it certainly does make a difference. Now, when folded, the guitar is only 18.5 inches long. And as far as weight goes, you might think that all this stuff going on inside would weigh it down, but it's only 7.2 pounds, which is pretty much the typical weight of any electric guitar. Actually lighter than most Les Pauls, for instance. Ciari also have a P90 configuration of the Ascender Standard and a custom shop range, but I think personally the Ascender Standard will be the model that most people will go for. Now, a question I had when I first saw this guitar was regarding the truss rod. So yes, this guitar does have a truss rod and it is adjustable, but it only spans the length of this first neck portion, so you can only effectively adjust the bow along this length. Not a major issue though, and as I said, out of the box it played really great, so I didn't need to do any setup adjustments on it. Let's now take a quick listen to some playing examples with some basic tones, and then I'll run through my thoughts on this guitar and some of the pros and cons. Now, with the folding feature as a main talking point on the guitar, most people would just call this a travel guitar, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, but I'd probably call this more of a studio gigging guitar that has the ability to travel. And here's why. So there's lots of travel guitars on the market, mostly in the acoustic space. As for the electric side, there's not as many options, but all of them typically have some sort of trade-off to make them portable. So whether that's a shorter scale length, a headless design, lack of a full body, you name it. I've played many of them, and sure, they serve their purpose and they scratch the itch, but you still always come back from a trip and you have that home sweet home feeling when you pick up your full size electric. Now, this really isn't the case when it comes to the Ciari Ascender. I've had a short trip with this and a few overnight trips, and the Ascender is a guitar that I would 100% be comfortable gigging or recording with. You really don't feel like you're compromising on anything here. It completely stands on its own and up against a lot of my higher end electrics. So That's why I don't like calling it a travel guitar, but rather a studio guitar that has the ability to travel. And the Ciari team have also told me that the guitar was actually first designed, first and foremost, as a professional stage ready, high quality guitar. So making it fold was their second priority. So the emphasis is on exceptional playability that folds for convenience. Now, having said that, there are a couple of minor things that may stick out to players, which I'll cover shortly. But first off, overall, what are my thoughts on the guitar? Let's first talk about playability. Absolutely excellent. As I said earlier, I can't fault the playability on this guitar. It's got a super comfortable neck, and the fretwork due to the plecking means it feels great up and down and everywhere you play. Now, one thing to mention is that yes, where the hinge occurs, there's a transition in material from mahogany to the aircraft grade aluminium. You can feel this, especially on a cooler day. The metallic part is cool to the touch. However, I think they've done a wonderful job making it smooth and flush. It can slightly be felt, but mostly because of that temperature change that I spoke about. Once you play this for about a minute, you completely forget it's there. So how could I compare this guitar to other popular models? Well, I have a lot of other electric guitars, most of the iconic models out there. And if I had to compare how this plays and sounds, I would say it's closest to my Gibson Les Paul Studio in terms of the neck feel, the playability, and certainly the tones as well. In terms of looks, it's got a unique body shape. If I had to compare it against something, I'd say it's got similar vibes to the Brian May Red Special body. The headstock is a bit on the smaller side, but I imagine that's so it fits comfortably within the body. But overall, I dig it. I like the look of this guitar. It's not a body shape people will be very familiar with, so you'll certainly have a lot of your guitar buddies asking about it. So overall, pros and cons. Well, a massive pro is that if you do like to move around and travel and you're in a lot of hotel rooms, you won't need to buy a good electric guitar for home, studio gigging, and then a separate travel guitar. This can serve both purposes, and that's what I really like here. It's a studio guitar that has an amazing ability to travel. Sitting at $17.99 US, it's about the same price as a USA Fender, and certainly much cheaper than most USA Gibsons. So I'd say that's pretty fair value given the hardware, the pickups that you're getting, the setup, and the made in USA status. The obvious massive pro is the portability. To be able to fit this underneath an airplane seat is just awesome. Okay, so what about the cons? What are some things to note and what didn't I like? Well, first off, the finishing inside the cavity here and where the strings pass through the body were a little bit rough. It didn't affect the playability at all, but it's just something that I noticed and it stuck out to me when I first got the guitar. But again, not a major issue, it's just an aesthetic thing. Secondly, the 12th fret inlay. This is where the hinge folds. So understandably, they can't fit a normal inlay here, but I personally didn't like the look of the 6 smaller inlays. That's just me being picky though. As I noted earlier, you can feel a slight change in the neck material as you move up the neck, but it's very seamless, and after a minute or so you get used to it very quickly. Another thing I found when playing this guitar that some might not like is the nut string guard here. So this guard is designed to keep the strings sitting neatly on the nut when folding and unfolding the guitar. So it protrudes the tiniest bit above the nut, as you can see. It doesn't happen very often, but let's say you move your fretting hand behind this nut position, you may come in contact with that guard and it feels a little bit unnatural, but it takes a little getting used to. It's not something that happens a lot when I play, but I think it's just something that I wanted to point out and note. Finally, the other tiny con is that if you're looking for a travel guitar, this is phenomenal, but it is an electric guitar, so you do need an amp to make the most of it. So that means extra gear to buy. Now, I personally use the Positive Grid Spark Go when moving around with the Ascender, and I also use a Lakato wireless system too, so no cables, just the guitar and this tiny amp, which is a great setup for me. So that's the question you may want to ask yourself. Do I want a super low fuss travel guitar to pick up and play like an acoustic travel guitar for campfires? Or am I happy bringing a little extra gear to play with an electric guitar that can travel? So those are my thoughts on the Ciari Ascender Standard. If you want to learn more about this guitar, be sure to hit the link in the description below. And if you do decide to pick up a Ciari guitar, you can get a free Ciari backpack worth $150 US if you enter Guitar Zero to Hero at the checkout. Just make sure you have both the backpack and the guitar in the cart, and the backpack will be discounted. If you have any questions about the guitar, leave them in the comments below. Otherwise, I'll see you guys next time on Guitar Zero to Hero. Cheers.